My name is Vanessa Hale. I'm 28 years old, and yesterday morning I stood at the airport smiling like a loving girlfriend while I watched my boyfriend walk away with a lie in his carry-on. His name was Adrian, he was 26, and according to him, he was flying to New York for a week to attend the wedding of an old college friend. He kissed me goodbye at security, brushed his thumb across my cheek, and told me he'd miss me before he disappeared into the crowd like a man with nothing to hide. But by then, I already knew enough to feel that deep, sick cold in my chest. We had been together for 18 months and living together for 6, which was long enough for me to know the difference between Adrian being distracted and Adrian performing. For the last 3 weeks, he had been performing. It started so casually, I almost missed it. We were having dinner one night, takeout containers open between us, his laptop still on the table because he had been pretending to finish some client work. He looked up from his phone and said, almost too lightly, "I'm going to be gone for a week in early November. Claire from college is getting married. I haven't seen that whole group in forever." I nodded, twirling noodles around my fork. "Oh, nice. Where's the wedding?" "Upstate New York," he said. "Apparently the venue's gorgeous." Then he added, "She asked if I could come a little early to help with setup. I'm one of the few people free long enough to do it." That all sounded reasonable on the surface. Adrian worked remotely. His schedule was flexible. He had a gift for making suspicious things sound harmless if he said them in a relaxed enough voice. So I asked, "Want me to come with you? I could work from the hotel." The answer came too fast. "Oh no, it's going to be small. You'd be bored. It'll just be old college stories, wedding prep, people you don't know." He smiled when he said it, but the smile felt placed there, like a prop handed to him just before the scene began. Usually, Adrian hated going anywhere without me. Even grocery runs became a joint activity if he was in the mood. He was the kind of man who texted from the next room if I took too long to answer him. So the speed with which he shut down the idea of me joining him stayed with me long after dinner was over. I didn't argue. I just said, "Okay." But something inside me had already gone quiet in that dangerous way it does when it starts paying close attention. After that, the inconsistencies began to collect. A few days later, he was standing in our bedroom, holding up a suit jacket and asking my opinion, as if everything between us was perfectly ordinary. There was another garment bag on the bed, half unzipped, and I saw a silk tie in a shade of pale blue I had never seen him wear before. "Too much?" he asked. "For a wedding?" I said. "No." He glanced at himself in the mirror, then laughed under his breath. "I mean, I know blue used to be Natalie's favorite color, but—" He cut himself off so sharply the rest of the sentence died in the room. I looked up from the chair where I was folding laundry. "Natalie?" He didn't turn around right away. "The ex. I mean, nothing. Forget it." I kept my face still. "You just said Natalie." He finally looked at me through the mirror and gave me that sheepish little grin that had gotten him forgiven too many times in life. "Yeah, sorry. Old names, old stories. My brain's fried." Maybe another woman would have let it slide because the explanation was almost plausible. But Adrian's memory was annoyingly sharp when it mattered to him. He remembered release dates of obscure movies, the first meal we ate together, the exact model of the guitar he wanted when he was 17. He did not accidentally bring up the name of an ex while packing for a wedding trip. I didn't call him out. I just folded another shirt and tucked that moment away with the others. Then came the flight. He was at the dining table booking it while I was watering the plants by the window. I wasn't even trying to snoop. I only glanced over because he made a frustrated sound at the price. On the screen, I caught the destination before he angled the laptop slightly away. Albany. I turned. "I thought you said New York City." He barely missed a beat. "It's closer to the venue, and cheaper." Maybe. Sure. Except that wasn't what he had said before. Earlier, he'd talked about the city in that vague, easy way people do when they don't expect follow-up questions. It wasn't a lie polished enough to survive repetition. He looked back down at the screen and said, "Flights are ridiculous right now." I nodded and watered the fern, even though the soil was already damp. "Yeah, they are. That night I lay beside him listening to him breathe. Not asleep, just pretending to be relaxed. I could feel it in the tiny tension in his shoulders and the way he kept reaching for me, as if physical closeness might smother suspicion before it formed into words. I let him pull me in, and stared into the dark over his shoulder. The third thing was the one that broke whatever doubt I had left. 2 days before his trip, Adrian left his tablet on the couch while he went to shower. I was in the kitchen making coffee for the next morning, moving through our apartment by muscle memory, when I heard the soft chime of a message notification. I looked over without thinking. The screen lit up, and there it was. Natalie M. Can't wait to see you. Elena still has no idea you're coming. This week is going to be unforgettable. I didn't move at first. I just stood there with one hand on the counter and the other still holding the coffee scoop. Like if I stayed completely still, maybe my body would refuse to process what my eyes had already read. Natalie. Not Claire. Not some random college friend. Natalie. His ex-girlfriend. The woman he had once described to me as ancient history. The woman he swore had burned out of his life years ago. The woman whose name I had only heard twice in our relationship, both times wrapped in that careful, casual tone people use when they want to signal that something matters so little it barely deserves a sentence. And somehow she was connected to this trip. The shower was still running. Steam hissed faintly under the bathroom door. I crossed the room and picked up the tablet. I wish I could say I hesitated because I wanted to be better than that. I didn't. Not really. Whatever moral line there might have been had already been crossed by the person I loved, and he had crossed it so calmly he still expected me to wash his coffee mug and ask whether he wanted me to pack him snacks for the airport. So I opened the thread. The messages went back 2 months. At first they looked almost innocent. Catching up, small jokes, memories that could have passed for harmless nostalgia if I had been determined to stay blind. But then the tone shifted, softly and gradually, in the dangerous way betrayal usually does. I still think about that night before you left. We said we wouldn't do this again. You're the one who ended it. That doesn't mean I stopped wondering. I sat down slowly on the edge of the couch because my knees no longer trusted me. There was more. Messages about regrets, about timing, about how Elena was good and kind and perfect on paper for Silas, but some part of Natalie still felt unfinished. Elena was the bride. Silas was the groom. Natalie was the woman trying to reach back into something that should have stayed buried. Adrian was the man she had loved before, the one she was inviting into the edges of her wedding week like an open flame near dry grass. Then came the lines that made everything inside me go completely still. I booked you the room next to mine. Elena thinks it's for my cousin. That's a bad idea. Probably. Still coming? Yes. I stared at that word for a long time. Not maybe, not I shouldn't, not we need boundaries. Yes. The shower turned off. I heard movement behind the bathroom door and snapped into action, my heart slamming now, all delayed panic arriving at once. I took screenshots. Every page I could get through fast enough. Messages, the hotel booking, flight details, enough to prove pattern, intent, deception. Then I sent everything to my cloud storage, put the tablet back exactly where he had left it, and went to stand in the kitchen with the coffee container open in front of me. By the time Adrian came out toweling his hair dry, I was calm again. He smiled at me like I was home, like I was safe, like I was his. And I smiled back because in that moment, for the first time since I had met him, I understood that quiet could be more dangerous than rage. For the next 2 days, I watched him pack. I watched him build lies so casually they almost sounded practiced. Clear this, college friends that, early setup, busy week, bad signal at the venue, so don't worry if I'm slow to text. I watched him buy new cologne. I watched him fold shirts more carefully than usual. I watched him toss an extra box of condoms into the side pocket of his bag when he thought I wasn't looking, then later act offended when I asked if he needed help fitting everything in. Each little detail hurt in its own specific way. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was intimate. Betrayal is ugliest when it still uses the language of normal life. Yesterday morning, I drove him to the airport. The sunrise was pale and cold, the kind that makes everything look washed clean, even when nothing is. Adrian rested one hand on my thigh at red lights. He thanked me for driving him, kissed me before getting out, and told me, "I'll call you when I land." I said, "Have a good trip." And I meant something by it, just not what he thought. Because by then I had already decided I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to give him the dignity of a messy confrontation that let him frame this as confusion, weakness, closure, or some tragic leftover feeling he simply hadn't known how to manage. If Adrian wanted to fly to his ex-girlfriend's wedding with lies in his mouth and a room waiting beside hers, then I was going to let him arrive exactly where he wanted to be. And then I was going to make sure the right person knew he was there. The apartment felt different the second I got back from the airport. Not emptier, cleaner, like something toxic had stepped out of the room, even if it hadn't realized it yet. I dropped my keys on the counter, stood there for a moment, and let the silence settle. No music from his laptop, no half-finished conversations, no background noise of someone else's presence filling the space between my thoughts. Just me. And the truth, I didn't cry. That part surprised me a little. 18 months of a relationship quietly collapsing, and there was no dramatic breakdown, no shaking hands, no desperate urge to call him and demand an explanation, because I already had the explanation. Screenshotted, time-stamped, backed up. I walked into the living room, opened my laptop, and pulled up the folder I had created the night before. I named it something simple: receipts. Inside were dozens of images, conversations that started as, "Hey, long time," and slowly twisted into something else, something that should not exist if you were committed to another person. I clicked through them one by one, this time slower. Not because I needed more proof, but because I needed to feel it fully. Every word, every pause, every moment where he could have stopped and didn't. There was one message that kept catching in my chest. Elena is perfect for Silas on paper. On paper. That was the kind of wedding Adrian had walked into, one where the bride was secretly reaching backward instead of forward, and the groom had no idea the week around his ceremony had already been poisoned. Natalie wasn't innocent. Her messages didn't try to shut things down. They leaned in, tested boundaries, reopened doors that should have stayed locked. And Adrian always answered. Always. I closed the laptop slowly. The plan came together in pieces, not all at once. Not like some dramatic revenge fantasy. It started with a simple thought. She deserves to know. Elena. I had never met her. I didn't know her voice, her laugh, what kind of coffee she drank in the morning, or what she did when she couldn't sleep. But I had seen enough to know she was about to become collateral damage in someone else's unfinished story. After I got back from the airport and sat in silence for a while, I did what anyone in my position would eventually do. I looked her up. It didn't take long. Between the names and the messages, the venue, and the date, I found the wedding website within minutes. Elena Mercer and Silas Alvarez, November 3rd, Cypress Estate. There were photos. Of course there were photos. Engagement shots in golden sunlight. Silas with his arm around Elena, both of them smiling at the camera, like two people standing inside a future they believed in. There were tagged posts from friends and family, photos from showers and rehearsals, captions about countdowns and final details. Elena's page was linked through family tags and comments, and once I found her, the rest came fast. Pediatric nurse, warm smile. A woman who looked like she was trying very hard to believe in the life she was about to step into. One post from a few days earlier hit me hardest. Final week before I become Mrs. Alvarez. My throat tightened. She had no idea. None. She was about to stand in front of everyone she loved and promise her life to a man, while another woman was using that same wedding week to drag my boyfriend into something ugly and hidden. I closed the page, walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, stared at nothing, then shut it again. This wasn't only about me anymore. Yes, Adrian had lied to me. Yes, he had disrespected me. Yes, he had taken something real and treated it like a placeholder while he chased something unfinished. But Elena was about to make a decision that would tie her to the fallout of this forever, and she was making it without the truth. I sat back down. If I were her, would I want to know? The answer came immediately. Yes. Even if it destroyed everything. Even if it hurt. Even if it humiliated me in front of everyone I knew. Because the alternative was worse. Living a lie, marrying into it, building a future on something already cracked. I opened my laptop again, this time not to reread, to act. First, I gathered everything, every screenshot, every message that crossed the line from friendly into something else. The hotel booking confirmation showing adjoining rooms, the flight details, the message about Elena not knowing. I organized it carefully, chronologically, cleanly, so no interpretation was needed. Then I paused, because how you deliver the truth matters almost as much as the truth itself. I could have sent her a message, direct, blunt, risky. What if she didn't believe me? What if Adrian or Natalie got to her first and spun some version of events where I was the jealous girlfriend making things up? No, that wouldn't work. This needed to land in a way that couldn't be brushed aside. Something tangible, something that would arrive without warning, something that would force her to see before anyone could explain it away. That was when the idea came. Quiet, simple, effective. I opened a shopping site and searched for one specific item. A digital photo frame. Sleek, modern. The kind people put on coffee tables and load with memories. Except this one wouldn't be filled with memories. It would be filled with truth. I ordered it with express shipping to the venue. Cypress Estate. Attention, Elena Mercer. For the gift message, I typed, "You deserve to see this before you say I do." A concerned friend, I hesitated for half a second. Then I hit confirm. After that, I spent the next hour loading the frame, slide by slide, message by message, proof after proof. I made sure it looped automatically. No clicking required, no searching. Just turn it on and watch. When I was done, I leaned back and exhaled slowly. It didn't feel like revenge. Not exactly. It felt like correction. Like taking something that had been twisted in the dark and dragging it into the light. My phone buzzed. A message from Adrian. Landed. Signal's kind of bad here, but I made it. Miss you already. I stared at the casual tone, at how easily he moved between lies and affection. Then I typed back. Glad you made it. Have fun at the wedding. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then came, thanks. I will. Of course you would, I thought. Just maybe not in the way you expected. An hour later, I got the notification. Delivery confirmed. Signed for at Cypress Estate front desk. I placed my phone face down on the table, walked to the couch, sat down, and waited. Because somewhere, not that far away, a woman was about to open a gift that would change everything. And this time, no one was going to be able to lie their way out of it. The explosion came faster than I expected. I thought I'd have a few hours, maybe even until the next morning. Time for the gift to be delivered, unboxed, maybe left sitting in a room before anyone actually turned it on. I underestimated 2 things: how curious people get when a package arrives right before a wedding, and how fast the truth moves once it's impossible to ignore. It started with my phone buzzing on the table. Once, twice, then nonstop. I picked it up already knowing it wouldn't be Adrian. It was Lena, one of his friends. Not close enough to matter in my relationship, but close enough to know me. Lena, what did you do? I typed back slowly. Me. What are you talking about? The reply came instantly. Lena, don't play dumb. Adrian is losing it. He said you sent something to the venue. I leaned back against the couch. Me. I thought he was at Claire's wedding. There was a pause. Then, Lena. Claire. I could almost hear the realization forming on her end, the moment she understood she had just stepped into something she was not supposed to confirm. Me. Yeah, his college friend. That's where he is, right? No answer. Then a call. I let it ring out. Then another. Declined. Then the messages started stacking. Adrian. Vanessa, pick up. Adrian. This is not funny. Adrian. What did you send? I watched the screen light up again and again, his name flashing like a warning sign that had finally caught up with him. Then the voicemail came in. I played it. His voice wasn't calm, it wasn't controlled. It wasn't the version of Adrian I had lived with for the past year and a half. It was sharp, fractured. Vanessa, I know you're there. Pick up the phone. This is insane. Whatever you did, call me back now. The second voicemail came 30 seconds later. You don't understand what you've done. Elena, she called off the wedding. Do you get that? She called it off. There are people here from everywhere, families. This isn't just about us anymore. I paused the message, stared at the wall, then hit play again. You've ruined everything. The third voicemail was quieter and worse. "I'm coming home tomorrow. We need to talk." I let out a slow breath. Then finally, I texted back. Me. "Hope the wedding is going well. Weather looks beautiful upstate." The call came immediately. This time I answered. "Vanessa, is Claire marrying someone named Silas now?" I cut in, my tone calm, almost conversational. There was a pause, then a sharp inhale. "You know exactly where I am." "Do I?" I said lightly. "Because last I checked, my boyfriend was attending his college friend's wedding, not flying across the country to see his ex." "Stop," he snapped. "Just stop. This isn't how it looks." I let that sit for a second. Then I said, "Enlighten me." Silence. Then he tried again, voice tighter now, controlled anger bleeding through. "Natalie and I have history. You know that. When she reached out, it was just catching up. That's all it was, I said." "Catching up," I repeated. "In adjoining hotel rooms?" Dead silence. I could hear background noise behind him. Voices, movement, chaos. Good. "How did you even—" he started. "You left your tablet open," I said. "You also left a 2-month trail of messages where you talked about unfinished feelings and booked rooms next to each other during Elena's wedding week." "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that," I said. "I'm not guessing, Adrian. I'm quoting." His breathing got heavier. "You went through my private messages," he said, switching tactics. "Do you understand how messed up that is?" "And lying to me for 3 weeks isn't?" I asked. "Flying across the country to meet your ex in secret during someone else's wedding week isn't? Letting me drive you to the airport while you were heading toward that mess isn't?" "We weren't going to hook up." "Then why the room next door?" No answer. "Why the lies?" Still nothing. "Why tell me it was Claire?" "I didn't know how you'd react," he snapped. "You'd blow it out of proportion." I almost laughed. "Out of proportion? You flew across the country to your ex's wedding weekend, hid it from your girlfriend, and arranged to stay next to her. What proportion would you prefer?" His voice dropped. I was confused. "About what?" "About everything," he said. "Natalie and I never really got closure. When she reached out, things came back. Feelings, questions." "Feelings you acted on?" "No," he said quickly. "We just talked." I closed my eyes briefly. "You talked about what could have been while Elena was about to marry Silas and while you were still living with me," I said. "That's not harmless, Adrian. At minimum, it's emotional cheating." "You're twisting it. I'm reading it." He exhaled hard, like he was running out of arguments. Then he pivoted. "What you did is worse," he said. "You destroyed a wedding. Do you even realize that? Elena is devastated. Silas is losing his mind. Their family spent money to be here. This isn't some small thing." I let the silence stretch. Then I said very softly, "Elena deserved to know what kind of wedding she was standing inside." "You don't know their situation." "I know enough." "Natalie would have gone through with it," he said. Like that made anything better. This would have passed. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So that's your defense?" I asked. "That everyone should have stayed quiet and let Elena marry into a lie anyway?" That shut him up. For a moment. Then he said, "You've ruined my life." I didn't respond immediately because that sentence wasn't new. It was just the first time he was saying it out loud. Finally, I said, "No, you did that yourself. I just made sure the right person saw it." Silence again. Heavy this time. Then quieter, almost careful. "So that's it?" he asked. 18 months? Gone?" I looked around the apartment, at the couch we picked together, the kitchen we shared, the life we had built, one part real and one part apparently borrowed. "That ended when you got on that plane," I said. "Not when I sent the frame." Another pause. Then, colder now. "What about my stuff?" "I'll pack it," I said. "You can arrange to pick it up when you get back." "You're serious?" "Very." "You're just going to throw me out?" I let out a quiet breath. "You threw us away," I said. "I'm just cleaning up after it." He didn't say goodbye. The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a few seconds, then set it down. It buzzed again almost immediately. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" There was a slight pause, then a woman's voice, calm, controlled, but edged with something sharp underneath. "Is this Vanessa?" My stomach dropped. "Yes." "This is Elena." For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I was supposed to become Elena Alvarez this weekend." I sat up straighter. "Elena, I'm sorry." "No," she said gently. "Don't apologize." Her voice didn't shake. That somehow made it worse. "You didn't ruin anything," she said. "You stopped me from making the biggest mistake of my life." I closed my eyes briefly. "I just thought you should know." "I needed to know," she replied. "So, thank you." There was a pause. Then, quieter. "How long?" "From what I saw, about 2 months," I said carefully. But it sounded like there were feelings before that. She let out a breath. "I knew Natalie still hovered around the edges," she said. "I just didn't know she was pulling other people into it." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She already knew enough. "The worst part," she said after a moment, "is that I think I always felt something was off." I swallowed. "Now you know." "Yes," she said. "Now I do." Another pause, then softer. "For what it's worth, you seem like a good person." I let out a small, humorless breath. "So do you." "I am," she said simply, "which is why I'm not marrying into this." There was strength there, real strength, the kind that doesn't need to raise its voice. "Take care of yourself, Vanessa," she added. "You too." The call ended. I sat there for a long time after that. The apartment was quiet again, but different now. Because somewhere else, not that far away, a wedding had collapsed, a truth had surfaced, and two women who had never met had just walked away from the same lie. The fallout didn't stop there. By the next morning, my phone looked like a war zone. 32 messages, 5 missed calls, 2 voicemails, all from Adrian. I didn't open them right away. Instead, I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and let the routine ground me before stepping back into the mess he had created and was now trying to drag me into. When I finally unlocked my phone, I didn't read everything, just enough to understand the pattern. First, anger. "You had no right. You crossed a line. You embarrassed me." Then deflection. "Nothing actually happened. You're blowing this up. You don't understand the situation." Then desperation. "Call me. Please just talk to me. We can fix this." I almost admired the progression. It was textbook. I tapped the last voicemail. His voice came through quieter this time, controlled. Too controlled. "Vanessa, look, I'm sorry, okay? I should have told you. I just didn't know how. Everything with Natalie, it was complicated. It still is. But what you did, that wasn't the answer." I paused it, then deleted it. Because I didn't need to hear the rest. I already knew how it ended, with him trying to turn this into something we had both handled badly. No, there was no we here. There was a line, and he crossed it alone. I typed a single reply. "There's nothing to fix." 3 dots appeared instantly, then, "Adrian." "So that's it?" I typed back. "Me." That was it, the moment you lied about where you were going. A few minutes later, he called. I answered, not because I wanted to hear him, but because I wanted to end it cleanly. "Vanessa," he said immediately, like he had been holding his breath waiting for me to pick up. "Thank God. Look, can we just talk like normal people for a second?" "We are talking," I said calmly. "That's not what I mean. You're being cold, detached, like none of this matters." "It mattered," I said. "That's why we're here." Silence. Then, "I made a mistake." One sentence. Carefully chosen. I almost smiled. "No," I replied. "You made a series of choices." He exhaled sharply. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Talking like everything is black and white. It's not. People are messy. Feelings are messy. You know that." "I do," I said. "But lying isn't messy. It's deliberate." "That's not fair." "What part isn't fair?" I cut in, my voice still even. The part where you told me you were going to a completely different wedding? Or the part where you booked a room next to your ex? Or the part where you let me kiss you goodbye while you already knew what you were walking into? He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was tighter. You're acting like I cheated. I didn't hesitate. You did. We didn't sleep together. That's not the only way to cheat. Another silence, longer this time. He was running out of angles, and I could hear it. Then he tried the privacy argument again. You went through my messages. That's a violation, Vanessa. That's not okay. I tilted my head slightly, even though he couldn't see me. And if I hadn't? How long were you planning to keep lying? I was going to tell you. When? When I got back. I let that sit, then said quietly, Tell me what? Another pause. That I saw her, that we talked, that I needed closure. Closure in the room next door? Stop saying it like that. Like it means exactly what it means. His voice rose. You're twisting everything. I'm simplifying it. That landed. I could tell, because his next line came out sharper. Fine. Maybe I handled it badly. Maybe I shouldn't have lied. But what you did, sending that to Elena, you didn't just hurt me. You humiliated her. You destroyed something that could have been fixed. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Fixed how? I asked. He hesitated, then, people work through things. I shook my head slowly. People work through things when both sides are honest. Elena was about to marry Silas, while Natalie was sneaking around behind the scenes and you were helping her do it. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. His breathing got heavier again. Frustration. Anger. Maybe fear. You don't get to play hero here, he said. You didn't do this for Elena. You did it because you were hurt. I didn't deny it. Of course I was hurt, I said. That doesn't make it wrong. It makes it vindictive. I let out a quiet laugh. If I wanted to be vindictive, I would have confronted you at the airport, or called you out in front of your family, or sent everything to the entire guest list. I gave one woman the truth before she legally tied herself to a lie. He went silent. Because he knew I was right. I gave her information, I continued. What she chose to do with it was hers. She called off the wedding, he said again, like repeating it might somehow change the outcome. Yes, I said simply. Another pause, then softer. She's devastated. I closed my eyes for a moment. I know. And you're okay with that? I opened them again. I'm not okay with her being hurt. I'm okay with her not being lied to. That was the line he couldn't cross. Because every argument he had built depended on minimizing what he had done, and I refused to let him do that. So that's it? He asked again, quieter now. We're just done? I looked around the apartment at the space that already felt different, lighter. Yes. A long silence followed. Then, I loved you. Past tense. Interesting. I didn't let it slide. You love being with me, I corrected. That's not the same thing. That's not fair. It is, I said, because if you actually loved me, you wouldn't have needed some private fantasy with someone else on the side. He didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't push back, because there was nothing left to defend. Pack my things, he said finally. I will. I'll come by when I get back. No, I said. We'll arrange something else. You're not even going to let me come home? Home. The word landed strangely. You gave that up, I said. His breath hitched slightly. Then, you're really serious about this? I am. Another pause. Then the line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly, set it on the table, and for the first time since all of this started, I felt something close to calm. Not relief, not yet, but clarity, the kind that comes when something complicated finally becomes simple. He lied. I found out. I ended it. No gray area, no confusion, no maybe, just truth and consequences. He didn't come back quietly. Men like Adrian never do. 3 days later, in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon while I was working from home, I heard the key hit the lock. A pause, then a sharp, frustrated twist. Another. The sound of metal resisting, then banging, Vanessa, open the door. I didn't rush. I finished the sentence I was working on, saved my file, closed my laptop slowly, and only then stood up. By the time I walked to the door, the knocking had turned louder and more impatient, like force alone might fix something that had already been decided. Vanessa. I opened it. Adrian stood there, but he wasn't alone. His mother was beside him, her posture stiff with disapproval, lips already pressed into that familiar line that meant she had come prepared to correct me. Behind them stood another man, tall, slightly awkward, the kind of presence that didn't belong in the scene but had been brought anyway to tip the balance. For a second, none of us spoke. Then Adrian's eyes flicked past me into the apartment. You changed the locks. Yes. His jaw tightened. You can't just do that. I already did. His mother stepped forward before he could respond, her tone calm in the way that always felt rehearsed. Vanessa, let's not turn this into something unnecessary. We're all adults here. Let's go inside and talk. I didn't move. No. That one word hung there longer than anything louder would have. Adrian's expression shifted, irritation mixing with disbelief. You're seriously going to do this at the door? You don't live here anymore, I said. There's nothing to discuss inside. That's ridiculous. My things are in there. They're not. That stopped him. What? I packed everything, I said evenly. It's in storage, paid through the end of the month. His mother frowned. You moved his belongings without telling him? I didn't think he'd mind, I replied. He was busy at a wedding. Adrian flinched. The man behind them shifted uncomfortably, clearly realizing this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. You can't just kick me out, Adrian said, voice rising again. I have rights. Do you? I asked. Because your name isn't on the lease. That landed hard. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The other man finally spoke, cautious. If he's not on the lease, and she gave notice... Adrian snapped without turning. Stay out of this. I let my gaze move past him and meet the stranger's eyes for a brief second. He looked away almost immediately. Good. He was already starting to understand. Where am I supposed to go? Adrian demanded. I shrugged lightly. That's something you should have thought about before you decided to lie to the person you were living with. His mother stepped in again, more forceful this time. Vanessa, this is excessive. Adrian made a mistake, yes, but this reaction is disproportionate. I looked at her, really looked. At what point does it stop being a mistake? I asked calmly. When it happens once, twice, or when it becomes a plan? She didn't answer. Because she didn't have one. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across the hallway like he needed movement to keep himself from unraveling. Fine, he said finally, stopping in front of me again. Where are my essentials? My laptop, my medication, my documents? I kept those separate. I reached for the box I had placed near the entryway earlier that morning and handed it to him without ceremony. He took it, immediately opening it, rifling through the contents like he expected something to be missing. Where's my watch? He demanded. In storage. That was a gift from my father. And it's safe, I said. Labeled, boxed. You'll get it when you collect the rest of your things. He slammed the box closed. This is insane. No, I said quietly. This is organized. That irritated him more than anything else I had said. Because anger, he could fight. Calm left him with nothing to push against. Behind him, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, hesitated, then answered. What? A pause. His expression shifted, not softer, worse, tighter. No, I can't deal with that right now, he muttered. I said I'll call you back. He hung up quickly, but not before I caught the name on the screen. Natalie. Of course. Still talking to her? I asked, my tone neutral. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence did it for him. That's not your concern anymore, he muttered. You're right, I said. It's not. Another beat of silence. Then his mother spoke again, more carefully now. Vanessa, where is he supposed to stay tonight? With you, I said, her lips pressed tighter. That's not practical. It's not my problem. Adrian let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Unbelievable. After everything, I repeated, my voice still even. After I supported you for 6 months while you built your business? After I covered most of the rent because you said things would stabilize? After I trusted you? That hit something deeper, because this time he didn't immediately argue. Instead, his eyes flicked away, just for a second. Enough. How much were you actually contributing? I asked. Vanessa? How much? He exhaled, frustrated. That's not the point. It is now. Silence. Then quieter, almost reluctant. 600. The number hung there, small, exposed. Our rent was $2,400, I said. I was covering $1,800 every month. I was building something, he snapped, defensive again. It takes time. For 6 months? I asked. Or until something better came along? His mother stepped forward sharply. That's enough. But it wasn't. Because now everything was out in the open. Not just the lies, the pattern, the dependence, the convenience. Adrian looked at me, something like anger and embarrassment mixing behind his eyes. You're twisting this, he said. I'm clarifying it. The other man shifted again, clearly done with the situation. Maybe we should go, he said quietly. This isn't my place. Adrian turned on him. You said you'd help. I said I'd give you a ride, he replied, already stepping back. This is something else. And then he left. Just like that. No drama, no loyalty speech, just distance. Adrian watched him go, stunned for a second before reality settled in. One more thing slipping out of his control, he turned back to me, but whatever he was about to say didn't come out the same way anymore, because now he knew there was no angle left, no leverage, just consequences. Where's the storage unit? He asked finally, voice flat. 5th Street, Unit 308. Keys in the box. He nodded once, tight, controlled, then turned to leave. Halfway down the hall, he stopped, didn't turn around, but said, I loved you. I stood there for a second, then replied just as evenly, You should have acted like it. He didn't respond, didn't look back. He just kept walking. His mother followed. The hallway fell quiet, and when I closed the door, the sound of the lock clicking into place felt final. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. People like Adrian don't disappear cleanly. They linger. They circle back. They look for loose threads they can still pull. For the first 24 hours after he left, everything was quiet. No calls, no messages, no sudden attempts to reopen something that had already been shut. I almost believed he understood. Then my phone buzzed, a payment request. I stared at the notification for a second before opening it. $1,200. Note, moving expenses. Since you kicked me out. I let out a slow breath, not anger, not even surprise, just confirmation. He still didn't get it. I declined it. Didn't add a message. Didn't explain. Just tapped the button and set my phone down. 30 seconds later, another one came through. $150. Note, storage unit. You put my stuff there. This time I typed back. It's paid through the end of the month. After that, it's your responsibility. I hit send, watched it deliver, watched the typing bubble appear and disappear. Then another request came in. $600. Note, therapy. For what you put me through. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. I declined that one too and sent, get help, but not on my tab. The requests kept coming. Smaller, pettier, more desperate. $40, Uber from your place. $2,400. Last month's rent, you owe $300. Emergency expenses. Each one declined, each one more revealing than the last. Because this wasn't really about money. It was about control, about trying to pull me back into a dynamic where I explained, justified, and negotiated, where I carried part of his consequences so he didn't have to feel them fully. I didn't. The last one came through differently. 1-cent note. This is what you're worth. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I smiled, tapped accept, and sent back 2 cents with a note. Here's my 2 cents. Pay your own bills. He blocked me after that. Clean. Immediate. And honestly, that was the first real boundary he had respected in this entire situation. A few hours later, I got an email. Long, rambling, from an address I recognized but had never used. Natalie. Of course, I opened it. It was exactly what I expected, a carefully constructed version of events where everything had been misunderstood, where she and Adrian had unfinished conversations but no real intention of crossing a line, where the wedding had already been shaky before I got involved, and where, most importantly, I had overreacted. I read it once, all the way through, then closed it, didn't reply. Because people who need to rewrite reality that badly aren't looking for answers. They're looking for agreement, and I wasn't offering that. Later that night, another message came in, this time from Elena, short, simple. I kept the frame. I sat down on the couch, reading it again. Then another message followed. It's a good reminder to trust my instincts. I typed back after a moment. You already had them. You just needed proof. 3 dots appeared, then, still. Thank you. I looked around my apartment as I read that, at the space that used to feel shared. Crowded, complicated. Now it felt different. Not empty, open, like there was finally room for something honest to exist in it. Take care, I typed. She sent back a simple, you too. And that was it. No dramatic friendship, no extended conversation, just 2 people who had crossed paths at exactly the moment they needed to, and then moved on. The rest of the fallout played out at a distance. Social media told its own version of the story. The wedding had officially been canceled. Guests had started leaving early. Families were arguing. Money was being lost. Reputations were cracking. Adrian stayed quiet online. No posts, no statements, nothing, which told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't fixing anything. He was hiding. A week later, I got one more notification, the storage unit payment reminder. I stared at it for a second, then closed it. Not my responsibility anymore. Not my problem to solve. For the first time in months, maybe longer, I made dinner just for myself. I ordered food Adrian used to complain about, turned on music he never liked, and sat on the couch without checking my phone every 5 minutes. No tension, no second guessing, no wondering if something felt off. Because nothing was hidden anymore, and without the lies, there was space to breathe, to think, to exist without carrying someone else's half-finished story. Funny how that works. You spend so long adjusting yourself around someone else's confusion, their indecision, their quiet betrayals, that when it's gone, you almost don't recognize the silence. But if you sit with it long enough, you realize it isn't silence, it's peace.